I'm the Pine,
And I'm the Water, and you're listening to A Cup of Tea,
a podcast about exploring life through each other's eyes,
while sharing a cup of tea with you.
And today's tea is
Our delicious and now traditional raspberry rooibos.
I don't know that we can say that it's traditional. It's the second time I drink it.
Well, that is my traditional.
Sure, we'll go with that. But yeah, I am very happy about this tea. So we'll keep it up for a little more.
Yes.
I am very excited and intrigued about today's topic. How did you think of it?
I was at the gym. I think I was either on the elliptical or on a bike or something, and I was looking for something to watch, and I wanted to watch a Good Mythical Morning thing, but I couldn't find anything or something, and on my YouTube feed, I got this SciShow video, which, if you don't know what SciShow is, it's a YouTube channel that is so old. It's by one of the famous, I think they're famous like that, the Vlog brothers, John Green and Hank Green. And Hank has this show that has existed forever since we were in high school.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know him from SciShow, but I know him from Crash Course.
Yeah, because I remember using both SciShow and Crash Course, like Crash Course to study school, like stuff and like history and stuff.
Crash Course is so cool.
And then SciShow, I remember the Rocky loved it.
Really?
Yeah. And that's how I started watching that. So SciShow. And they had this episode that's the one I watched that was called something like, what's your inner voice? Or like, what's the deal with your inner voice? And so they explain sort of what researchers think it is and what they've done to find out more about it. And it's pretty cool. So that got me the idea of, because we had talked about what it feels like. I think when we started thinking about a cup of tea, we had this idea of, at some point, talking about, or I think we called it our inner, like our empathy voice.
Right.
Where's the line of trying to be empathic towards
and standing
somebody?
up for yourself.
Yeah. So that's what got me the idea.
Interesting.
Yes.
I am like so confused by the whole thing of people not having an inner dialogue.
Yeah.
But I think I'm not saying it's not a thing. Not yet anyways.
I need more data to back that up.
Yes. The things that I think a lot of the sort of videos that we've been trying to watch to figure it out are not, like you said, like asking the good questions to figure it out. And I wonder, because some of it that we were watching just now, it was like, oh, I'm not like having a continuous thought 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So I don't have an inner monologue, but it's like,
who
that's
does?
not a thing. No.
Even, on the SciShow video, we will link it somewhere.
That will be our recommendation of
yes.
this show.
Oh no, I haven't done that.
Another one. Yes. Look at that.
But anyway, they were saying, about, it's like a spectrum, so very few people talk to themselves 100% of the time. The normal thing, I think, is to talk to yourself between 30% of the time or something like that. Between 30 and something other number.
I will say, I talk to myself, like, a lot.
But wouldn't you think that that's because you live by yourself, so you have a lot of alone time?
Probably. I talk to myself a lot.
To not go crazy.
But I've always sort of talked alone. It's always been a thing. And my mom, when I was little, my mom was like, you're so weird. Why are you talking to yourself? And when I go on sometimes I've caught myself walking on the street, talking to myself out loud.
You're weird.
And I'm like, oh, people are noticing that I'm talking by myself. So a lot of the time I do it. Like I say it out loud. And some of the people that we were watching on the videos trying to explain how they don't have an inner monologue, they were saying like, well, I don't think about it. I just say it.
But yeah, that's how it works.
I mean, on the one hand, sure, that's how it works. Because you were asking me if I think about what I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
And it's like this. Like right now, I didn't have a thought process of to like the words that are coming out of my mouth right now. You know?
I'm not pre-filtering them before they come out.
Yeah, not right now.
Which is like one of the girls in one of the videos that we saw said, like, yeah, I have no filter. I'm like, I mean, I don't know that you... Who does?
Well,
like,
I think it's a very flexible thing. I think you can both do the no filter thing, where it's like you and I are having a conversation that we didn't pre-think, pre-process, like, or anything of the sort. But sometimes there's that other thing that you and I were talking about the other day.
Okay, yeah.
About, like, for example, the thing that I was telling you is that I have so many conversations in the car with other people, quote unquote, by myself.
Yeah.
And a lot of those are conversations that I want to have with people, that I'm planning on having with people. And what I do is sort of like lay it out, not to be the other person. Like I'm not having a play.
I'm not entertaining myself with this.
I mean, it is very entertaining, but it's more for like to lay out what I want to say, to sort of have like a thought process, try to get all my points out, and then that makes it so much easier when I have the actual conversation. Like it never goes the exact way because now I have the input of the other person. But I do that a lot, and I think it's been very helpful to do that. Like, do you do that too?
I think, yes. I just had this moment of going down memory lane a bit, because just when you said, practice conversations, like, I also do that. And I think it's not... I would say I don't practice a conversation with you. You know?
You don't?
Like,
none of our tough conversations?
Yeah, maybe some of those.
Right.
But...
Not day-to-day stuff.
Yeah, no. But I do have... Like, the first time I can tell that I did that consciously, like, oh, I need to know what I'm going to say, and I need
mentally
to be
prepared.
Yes. I had one of the tough conversations with one of my... with a friend who's no longer a friend of mine, and we had this problem at school in a project that we were working on. And I think I rehearsed that conversations so many times before I actually went and talked to her.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was like, okay, I need to know exactly what I'm going to say. Otherwise, I'm just going to freeze or not say anything, right? So I do see that sort of function of inner speech or inner voice where you are like using it as a social tool to help yourself when there's something that you know is going to be hard for you. Kinda?
Wait, so now I'm confused. Like, because of what we're saying, that we practice these conversations and we do them out loud.
Yeah.
That, like, I wonder if that's why people think that they don't have an inner monologue, because they say it out loud. But then that doesn't mean, or does it mean, I guess, does it mean that you can't do it in your mind?
I guess maybe there are some people, like, I think from the SciShow video, I think Hank was saying that it's a thing that happens mostly in your mind rather than you speaking it out loud.
What, the inner monologue?
Yeah, the inner voice thing, which is, I guess, one thing is to, because a lot of the videos that we saw were like, oh, I read, but I don't listen to what I'm reading. You know? Kinda?
Oh, yeah. That was another thing.
I was like, what?
Okay, so that one, I have some thoughts. The thing is that I took one of those, like, fast reading courses when I was, like, 12 or something. And I will say it did help me a lot. I was, and I still am sometimes, depending on my attention span. Like, I can read something, and if I'm too distracted, I get to the end, to the bottom of the page, and I'm like, I don't know what I read. And that was, like, the general rule of my life when I was little and I wouldn't read. that's why I didn't, because I didn't like it, because I didn't know what I read. But I took this course and it helped me. And after that, I became like very nerdy and geeky and I loved reading. But some of the thing that they were saying, because it seems that there's the pattern of like these people that say that they don't have an inner monologue apparently are very fast readers. So what I'm seeing here is more like there's this technique for fast reading where you don't go word by word. You just sort of like let your eyes read without having your mind read. Yeah. So you kind of scan it and then you can pick up sentences or the meanings of sentences like in blocks instead of reading word by word. So I think if you read word by word, one, you're slower for obvious reasons. Yeah. And you can do it in a voice. You can narrate it. And there's some books that it helps me to read them if I make up a voice for them. Yeah. If I don't read them in my voice, if I have like this really deep man voice sometimes, if it's like a sort of philosophically thingy, then I pretend that, like it's a philosopher reading this to me, and it makes it easier and more entertaining for me to read. But that doesn't mean that if I need to like get through a book for research or for school or stuff like that, then I can do the other thing, and I don't read word by word either. So I think that just means that there's this different ways. But that now makes me wonder, if I can do both, then does that mean that the people that say that they don't have an inner monologue just haven't sort of developed the inner monologue sort of skill?
I mean, I guess it depends on how you define it. Again, because one of the girls that we saw the video of was saying, I don't have an inner monologue. I don't talk to myself all day. And I just make notes. Like she said something, right? She said something like, I jot notes throughout the day of, oh, take out the trash. Oh, do this. Oh, do that. But
I guess it's not like a conversation
of thought. Yeah, it's not a conversation, and it's not a constant stream of thought. Which to me is like, okay, I can get that because I can also be like mentally taking notes of, oh, remember to bring the charger. Remember to bring the super bag. Yeah. Yeah, we had a bit of a technical problem.
Anyway. I did not make a mental note of bringing all of our equipment today. So we had to go back to my place, get it, and then come back and set it up.
So it's like that. It's like you make those mental notes of like, when, like you said, oh, I saw it and I should take it to the, no, I can do that later. So that sort of thing.
Right. I had this whole process of, I was in my house, the super bag with all of the equipment was in my kitchen. And I saw it like in the morning or last night, and I was like, oh, I could put it by the front door. And all of this is in my head. I'm not saying it out loud. It's just like, I just see it and I think about it. And then that same voice is just like, man, I'll just remember tomorrow. Of course I will. And then I didn't. But yeah, that's the kind of sort of, that's a very good example of a small sort of thought process conversation that happened in my head. Yeah. Where I heard my voice, kind of.
Yeah.
It's a complicated thing to explain. And to say that I heard my voice.
But I think you do.
Yes, but I wonder if some people might think like, oh, I don't hear voices. But that's more of like a hallucination and schizophrenia where there's this theory of like, it's more like schizophrenics can actually auditorily hear the voices from their inner monologue, but they perceive it as an actual external voice that they're hearing.
I found that so fascinating when I watched that on the video. I was like, that explains so much. It makes a lot of sense.
I don't know if it's a proven thing. It might be, but I find it like very, like, that makes sense, you know?
Yes. Which, it's like, okay, so if I hear myself talk, right, I would say I sound almost like how I hear myself just now that I am speaking, and you hear my voice differently than I do.
Right.
Right? And so I think that I sound close to what I sound to myself right now.
I would
think. Not quite. It's like a more neutral version of that same voice.
You think? Kinda. I've never quite thought of like how my voice sounds to myself. If anything, wait, let me go back to the back thing. Because I'm wondering if I hear myself or I read myself.
Ooh.
Hold on. You guys give me a second. I think it's like a combination of like seeing the thought that I'm saying, like taking the back, kind of like a visualization kind of thing. But maybe, hearing myself. The thing now, like, remember, in the moment, sure, I think I did hear myself. I'll pay more attention to this now on, from now on. But now, sort of remembering it, I think it's more that I can see the words in my head rather than hearing myself.
I think I both hear myself and see what I'm doing. Like,
the thing that you're thinking about.
Yeah. Either I don't think about it and it's automatic. Like we were saying, like when you cook and you know what you're cooking already. I do, and I think it's something that they mentioned on the SciShow video. It's like you use your inner voice for working memory.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, like, oh, I need eggs, I need rice, I need to get this from the fridge, and there's something else. What am I missing? You know, and that's kind of like how I think about it.
Right.
So,
and that's a thing that you could be saying out loud or in your mind.
Yeah. And so sometimes I do. Like, if I am not alone, I will probably be, like, if you're with me, I'm like, what else was I
You'll say it out loud.
From the fridge? Yeah.
And if you're by yourself.
But if I'm by myself, it'll usually just be in my head.
I think I do the other thing. You know? Yeah, because if I'm by myself, I am more outspoken. And yeah, I say things out loud. And when I'm with people, if there's something going on, then I keep it to myself and like having my thought process and whatever and going here and going there.
Maybe I tell it to Spock sometimes as well.
I definitely talk to the cats all the time.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the other thing we were thinking about that I remember from the drive in the car was this. Okay, I think we were watching the first video that we found after the SciShow ones where this girl was saying, oh yeah, I don't have an inner monologue. And she sounded so vloggy and fake. And it was gross.
Very judgy.
Yes. But that's the thing. I think it's like people that don't have an idea, that they don't fully have an idea of what they're talking about. And I'm not saying we do, we're experts. But, you know, she's like, I am certain that I don't have an inner voice. Where she seems to me like she has not taken the time to actually figure out if she indeed does not have an inner voice, or she's just like, from what she kind of understands of what the concept is, she's like, oh yeah, I don't do that. Like, because she said like, oh, like in the movies that they have an inner voice and whatever. No, of course that's not how it works. I mean, in a movie you might have a narrator and you have like a flow of consciousness kind of dialogue thing, you know? And I agree that might happen, and it's where I mentioned the shower thought thing, where you usually can, like, your mind wanders off, or when you're trying to meditate and you
that
can't
would be
seem
a
to
good
concentrate,
question. Or you know, like, what happens when you're in the shower?
Yeah,
you know, and yeah, to that thing, it's where I think when I was asking, well, then, like, what does she think that an inner monologue is?
Yes.
Because if you go to the thing where the other person was like, 100% of the time thinking about something, having a conversation, it's like, well, no. Mm-hmm. Although I found it very interesting and kind of funny, but sad. The whole thing that the more inner monologue or dialogue you have, it's sort of linked to depression or anxiety.
Yeah.
But I get it. You know what? Like, I understand it. The thing, you know, this thing about how anxiety can be sort of described as a mind that never stops, like this monkey mind that's very restless.
Yeah.
And I've talked to Pablo about this so many times, and he definitely has a monkey mind. And I think it could be maybe this sort of quieting your inner monologue through, meditation and all of that stuff. So I'm kind of, what I'm getting at right now, it's this more, because in the video they said that it's a spectrum. But I wanna I'm seeing it more of as a skill.
Interesting.
Yeah, because I think it's not that, you know what, like, ooh.
I guess if you think about it, like how when they mentioned that the link to depression is that when you are depressed, you think negative things of yourself because it tends to be, or at least how do you describe it? It's like the inner voice is these things that you tell yourself and that tend to be negative. And so when you think of somebody with depression, if a normal person has these voices or these thoughts that tend to be critical of oneself, then a depressed person will have them, but 10 times more, right?
Yeah.
Or be 10 times more negative or whatever. And so I guess it can be a skill in the sense of, and if you go to therapy and you learn how to manage those voices and how to talk to yourself to not bring yourself down, I see how that can be a skill.
I will say, like, speaking from experience, there was a time in college when I was depressed because of some medication that I was taking, and it was a side effect and whatever. And that was such like an interesting experience. Like my psychologist self was just like looking at it in awe, even though I wasn't like suffering.
Yeah.
But there was this thing. Okay, I started having negative thoughts. And I can kind of remember it as a sort of distorted version of my voice, but I kind of visualized it coming. Okay, so sensory wise, when I would have, well, just the way I would feel throughout that whole depression thing, but especially when I was having negative thoughts, I felt like this sort of gooey mass on myself, like kind of like a cape, if I can give it a sort of shape.
Like a cloak.
Yeah, kind of like that. But it was more like, I picture it very similar to Venom. Like Venom from Marvel.
Yeah.
Very like that. So it was still me, but it was a distorted me, a sort of like messed up me talking to myself. So I could tell, like, my experience was that there was something external, something that was not me telling me these things. So one of the things that really messed me up when I was depressed was when I would wake up and I would need to, get up, go to school and whatever. And this voice would I would feel very heavy. Let's start there. I would feel very heavy. And then part of me would be like, I don't want to get up.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's so interesting. Now it is a part of me. Okay, so when I was in bed, it was a part of me. It was a part of me that was like, no, but I don't feel. Oh, have you seen Big Mouth?
No.
In Big Mouth, there's Depression Kitty or whatever her name is, and she's like a really big fluffy cat that sits on top of you.
It feels like the what's this movie called? Soul. Like where the lost souls go and that they become these like giant dark, they're not shapeless, but these like blobs of people that are covered in like this dark dust thing. That's what it sort of feels like.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So when I was in bed, I picture it more like the Depression Kitty. And when I was like about my day and whatever, it's more of the Venom thing and like the negative thoughts attacking me kind of thing. But in the bed, I would spend literally like an hour trying to get up, having an argument with this other voice that's like the depression kitty, but it's actually like a voice of myself. And I'd be, no, but I need to get up. And the only argument this other voice had, because it wasn't negative thoughts in that moment. It was just like, but I don't feel like it.
Yeah.
Oh, this is like such a therapy session I'm having with myself right now. But it's kind of cute, you know, because it's like, of course you don't want to because you don't feel okay. So maybe, you know, like, but the thing is that I would argue with myself and be like, no, we need to get up. We need to get up. We need to get up. So I would spend like an hour or more just in that sort of war inside my mind. And then it just would have to come to a point where I'm like, just do it. Like, just do it. Not think about it.
Yeah.
And like literally put a foot out of the bed, put the next foot out of the bed, get up, and you win.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I
like,
get that.
It was such a thing. But that's where I'm like, you see, like the world of the inner monologue is so interesting. Or the world of the inner thought, because, you know, I've already mentioned things of like the external force, but then there's this other voice that is a part of me.
Yeah.
And like, it's a little overwhelming because I am so like fascinated by this conversation.
I think it's, I don't know, I'm just like starting to see that the scope of this inner monologue / inner voice thing is so big. Like, okay, there's things that can sound like they come from something else or from somewhere else, but they're still within your head. Like, you're imagining them. You're just seeing them embodied in some external shape or something.
Yeah, you know that thing that they were saying, I think it was in the like original video we were watching, of like how sometimes it's like the voices of like your parents or things that your parents have said.
Yeah.
And I just think that it's such, the way I'm looking at it right now, it's like you unconsciously adopt so many things. I think they said it in the video more eloquently than I am saying it right now. Of this thing that you're made up of, the things that you learn from like your culture and your experiences and the people around you, and especially your parents. So unconsciously, you sort of like adopt all of these little things from everybody. And I think sometimes these voices in your inner monologue or dialogues or conversations with however many people you have them with are sort of, this embodiments of the things that you unconsciously adopted. So it can sound like it's someone else. Like maybe you're at that point where you consciously are aware that it's your parent or someone, and it sounds like that's someone. But a lot of the times we don't realize that, for example, expectations and things like that are something that we are adopting, that we're sort of taking in from other people, so they sound like us. And that's something that can come out in therapy and be like, oh, this wasn't something that I thought. It was something that someone told me, and I decided that it was real. Yeah.
I think, I can see that a lot with, and this is taking me back to therapy of, the inner voice thing for me at a point, I guess, and it maybe still kind of is, but there was this, period of time. I don't think that is something that I've mastered or anything, but maybe I have gotten better at it. I had this mission to stop being so critical of myself, because I had, as my therapist put it, like, I have a very high bar for how I want to be and like who I am and how I want to do things. And I think of like always doing it properly, always working to the best, like everything to the best of my ability, and look for excellent shit, right? For things to work out, in the best way that they can.
Mm-hmm.
Which actually reminds me of the test of like, are you constantly trying to look for new ways to do stuff? Of course. If like you can improve on something, you should do it. So I have this very high bar and I am very critical, and her words were something like, you need to learn to forgive yourself when you don't reach that high bar you have set for yourself. And so part of that high bar thing is like, yeah, these voices of, I would not say that I hear them as my mom or my dad or my grandpa, but I know that they are the ones who said it. And now, because it's something that I learned and I internalized, it's something that I repeat to myself. So it's like, oh, you need to be great in school, and you need to do things properly or don't do them. And if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say it. You know, which with some of them I completely agree, but others are like, oh, just chill. You know, it's fine. It's fine if I don't get an A on every single class.
Very fine.
So yeah, that process of like learning to identify the negative voices and where they come from and sort of learn how to manage them. Yeah, I think it's a skill. Everyone should go to therapy.
Yeah.
It's and then the other thing I was just thinking about, because I spaced out for a moment.
Well, that's also a thing, spacing out.
So it's like, and now I feel like I'm being very meta. I spaced out and I started thinking about this thing of like, I'm trying to analyze how I thought about that thing that I thought about while spacing out.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit like making me dizzy right now, but because you were saying something and I was like, oh yeah, the shower thing. Like, how do we talk to ourselves in the shower? I don't know how I talk to myself in the shower. And this is just
all
me
happening.
Yeah, yes. Just telling you my thought process in that second. Like, I mean, I don't. How do I think in the shower? Like, I know that I think a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
I am very clear on that, and that's why sometimes I need to put music I don't lose track of time if I have to go somewhere. If I have like, oh, I need to be out of the house at 10. All right, I need to time myself. Otherwise, I'm just gonna be here for half an hour just saying shit to myself that is probably relevant, right? I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, so it's like, and this just made me think of how we were just watching the Little Simpsy video, and she looks like a stream of consciousness. Like,
just
she
talking.
does not stop talking, which is hilarious.
It's hilarious. That's kind of what inner monologue looks like in your mind.
Yeah, and so.
Well, sounds like. I don't know how it looks like.
I mean, that's I don't know. Thing. I would like to ask these people, and maybe this is what kind of what you were saying. Like, if you're listening to us or watching the video version, you can tell us what this experience is like for you, because we're so curious.
Please help me understand the no inner monologue thing. Because even right now, when you were going all meta and shit, I was like going meta about your thing. Well, okay, one of my first thoughts while you were telling me the meta thing was like, right, and how I asked you about like, well, do these people not have the Emperor's New Groove thing where like Cusco is with Isma or whatever, and she's going on and on and on, and then Cusco stops listening to her and goes into his own kind of thought thing?
Yeah.
That's like the spacing out thing. And I wonder if there's people that just never do. And we thought, well, maybe it's not that they don't get distracted. They maybe get distracted in a different way.
Yeah.
And instead of having their own little thought bubble while whatever is happening, maybe it's just like, oh, that light over there. If it's more of a sensory thing, or
that kind
of stuff.
Maybe it's not speech.
Right, you're right. Maybe it's something else.
You're just like looking into the void and seeing, oh wow, that is brown. Like, and you're not just thinking about it, you know, this is a podcast, so that I have to talk.
I have to tell you.
But it's like, oh yeah, it's just brown and you just stare at it and you just like get your mind drift off and not really even think of anything.
Yeah.
Right? I can see that. I have experienced that. Yeah. And there's also, this just reminded me of the girl that said that she didn't daydream. And I'm like,
yeah. Okay, and I asked,
how do you define daydreaming?
Exactly. Well, like, exactly. What do you think it is? Did she think that daydreaming is like, because she did say that she dreams at night when she's asleep. So I wonder, like, is she expecting to, like, see weird shit happening and that's what she thinks that daydreaming is? Like, I don't know. But there was more to my thought process about your meta thing. And I'm trying to remember what it was. Because that was the juicy part, not the Emperor's New Groove thing. Which now makes me think of, you know, when you're talking and I'm having these like notes of like, oh, things that I want to say, and then they kind of like go away and try to get them back.
Try to get it back.
Yeah, I will try.
But I was just thinking of this. I find it so fascinating though that there's maybe all these people saying, I don't have an inner monologue. I don't know what that is. What are you talking about? Does everybody do it? When at the same time, we are so bad at listening, right? And if you are actively listening to somebody, you should stop your brain from thinking to listen. Okay.
I know what it was. Okay. When you were saying that you're in the shower and sometimes there's so much going on, you have to put music to stop thinking about it. One of the videos that we were watching, there was this, like, they were interviewing a girl who said that she doesn't have an inner monologue, and they were like, well, what, something about, I don't remember what the question was, but she said that she never is doing nothing. She always has to be doing something. And she says, like, I'm cooking, or I'm doing this, or I'm doing that. I'm never, like, just not sitting, not doing anything. And she mentioned, you know, on the list of things that she always has to be doing something. It was like, or watching Netflix or whatever. And my first reaction was to be like, well, who just sits? And they're like, no, wait, yes. Sometimes you just sit.
Yeah.
And have a reflection, you know, have a cup of tea and watch the rain, hear the rain, that kind of stuff. But whatever. My point is that I wonder what's the correlation between keeping yourself busy so that you are not alone with your thoughts.
Yes.
What if that's what it is?
I think that is also, when you were just building up to it, I was like, oh, sounds like me. Like, she does not know how to be alone with herself. Which I think is a big thing. I think a lot of people go through that. I think I have gone through that at some point in life, where you keep yourself busy to not think. And I think not to throw, what's that expression? Throw somebody under the bus. Mm-hmm. But one of her friends, we were just talking about this the other day, like we think she's keeping herself busy to not think about a particular thing that she's
For a moment, I was like, who are you talking about? And then I was like, oh, I know who you're talking about.
So that is totally a thing where you don't chill for a second, because you know that if you sit down and stop doing something and get distracted, everything's going to fall apart. And you're going to have to actually think about yourself.
Right.
And work through your shit.
And maybe not even like going to like that extent, but it's making me think of like, maybe like what if there's no sort of consciousness? Because one of the videos we were watching, it was very like with the wacky guy, it was very like, oh, consciousness and awareness and things like that. So what if this idea that there's no inner monologue is because you are so distracted with what's outside and with what you're doing, with all of those things, that there is no process, you know, the thing that I was saying about this being a skill. What if there's no process of you learning to talk to yourself? And it kind of reminds me of, and this is one of those notes that I took while you're saying stuff, you know, because that's the thing. That's one option where like I take a note and I try to bring it back.
Yes.
And the other option is like where we're talking and it just comes out. It's just like out of nowhere, out of what you said, and it's like, oh, this, you know. But this is the note thing, and on the note thing, right? Okay, I almost lost it. On the note thing, it's reminding me. I once had a conversation with Pablo, and I was somehow telling him something about my inner imagery that I have, and I thought of that because of when you said, Jesus, what was it that you said? Something, I don't know, we'll see if I remember or if you figure out what I'm talking about. You said something that made me think of this like inner imagery thing and how Pablo said he doesn't have it. But not that he can't visualize, but I know. You said something about learning to be with yourself or something. And I thought like, oh, I learned to be with myself from like very young. So I sort of created a very imagery world in my mind.
Yeah.
And I literally have like a world, and I have spaces, and I have rooms, and I have...
You have a mental palace?
I do. I for sure definitely do. And one of the things that it helped me cope with was when I left the preserve and I missed the animals so much. There's the two cubs that I sort of helped raise at the beginning was Maha, a standard tiger, and Odin, liger. And I love them so much. They're so cute. Maha is my favorite animal in existence. I love him so much. He's the prettiest tiger to ever exist. So the thing is that I sort of created them. I put them in my mental world. Zoo? Yeah. I mean, so the thing is that there's like a sort of palace castle thingy. And there's this sort of jungle thingy next to it. And that's where Maha and Odin live. So when I miss them, like I am in my little world thing and I go visit them.
Wow.
Yeah. There are so many little things like that I do. And I wonder, I don't think it started there, but I do believe that it gave it more of a structure, because the place where I went to take the fast reading course, they were giving a Silva method something related course. And it was about your mind and your memory and your things, and it would just sounded cool. And in this course, they gave me a lot of structure to what I can visualize in my mind and sort of have there. So I remember this exercise where it was like, when you go to bed, picture, it can be the room that you're in or the room that you want to be in your mind palace or whatever, and picture the time in a clock of when you want to wake up. And I was
skeptical.
No, not at all. Not at all. That is not a word that would describe me. No. I am very naive sometimes. But no, what I was going to say, I was just being silly with myself. Because instead of picturing like an actual, like an alarm clock or like a digital watch or anything, I picture a sand clock. Oh. Is that what they're called? A sand clock?
An hourglass?
An hourglass, that's what I meant. In Spanish, it's a sand clock. An hourglass. So instead of picturing numbers or anything, I would picture it was a sand clock. It was an hourglass, and I would picture like, oh, it's gonna take the hourglass 8 hours to be done, and that's when I'm gonna wake up. But I would actually, be in this. So when I was in that course, I sort of created a room I was very into like fantasy. I'm very into fantasy. So my world is very fantasy. And I have this book about wizardology from the ology books. And there's this room, which is like Merlin's room. and he has a fireplace and a table with a lot of books and shit and stuff. So I kind of took that as inspiration, and that was my my first, I think, real mental room that I had. And the hourglass was there, so I would picture myself being in this room and seeing the hourglass and going to bed and be like, oh, it's gonna take 8 hours for the hourglass to be finished, to like be done, and that's when I'm gonna wake up. And it happened. Like, I would wake up 8 hours later, like, give or take. So I was, at some point, I talked about this with Pablo, and I told him what the exercise was, and he's been doing it, and he's so happy when it works out. He's like, oh, I pictured that I was gonna wake up at 8:30, and I woke up at 8:24, and it was like so cute.
I should probably do that.
So I just think it is, that's why I think it's a skill, and something that if it's either thought or imagery, I think it's such an interesting thing to develop.
Yeah, I think it is. I'm just thinking about Sherlock Holmes and the whole episode in Sherlock of the Mind Palace and the guy and everything. And when I first I don't have a Mind Palace. I don't think I can say that. Like,
but do you have like a lot of imagery or some imagery in your head?
At times. So just now when you know how a cup of tea is about seeing the world through each other's eyes, this is like, oh wow. This is a whole new way.
This is where we live up to our name.
Yes. So I can't say that I have that visual, like, mental space. I think it's hilarious though, how you have like a quote unquote physical space sort of in your mind when you're so bad at physically locating yourself in spaces.
That's a different thing. It's not the same.
I know. I just thought it was hilarious.
It is hilarious. I am so bad. Like, so incredibly bad at the, like, visual, what is it? Spatial
awareness?
Intelligence, yes. I am very bad. I'm not that bad at parking and stuff. Like, I'm better at parking than I am at, like, seeing myself in a map.
Yeah.
And even I have given it a little bit of try, but it's one of those things that I am so lost I stopped trying.
Yeah.
Of like visualizing the city.
Oh, I can totally see the city.
I cannot.
So, and that's that's kind of where I was going with this. It's like, okay, so you have your mental palace, which I kind of imagine as a literal palace, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, it is a very Disney thing.
And then I don't have that, but I can totally see the city and a house, and
but like in a map way, like location wise.
Yeah,
like which way this goes and which way that goes. My mind
can be like as a drone, and I can go around the city, and I know where everything kind of is.
That would be amazing.
So of course there's times when I'm like, oh shit, I don't know what street this is. You know? And I get lost, but in general, I'm like, oh yeah, we can go this way, or we can go this other way, and I mentally trace a map of where I'm going, kind of like the GPS.
Yeah. I would love that.
Yeah. So yeah, that's how it works.
It's a skill, because that's one thing, the drone thing, but I'm even bad at, like, let's say that we're downtown, or that I am downtown.
Oh, yeah.
And like, you take turn, like, I parked somewhere, and then I have to walk somewhere else. I have such a hard time, like, retracing
I cannot
where I
the
went.
Times we have looked for your car, because you don't know where you parked it.
I am very bad at, like, retracing my steps and being like, oh, I took a turn left here, so now this is at... No, I took a right turn here, so that means that going back, this is going to be a left turn. That kind of, like, I don't have that thought process. Or visualization. I don't have it. But when I was in school, we looked at at an article, or no, it wasn't an article. It was a study about cab drivers, maybe in London, somewhere. A study about cab drivers and how I don't remember right now, but like the area or the network in their brain that is about that spatial intelligence, kind of skill, is super developed in them.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness. And I don't know if I told you this, like, sort of, I guess it's a theory that I saw because of a study or something along the lines of that. Or if I'm making it up, I don't know. I'm pretty sure I got it from somewhere.
Yeah.
About how, so, I mean, now I'm confused. Okay, wait, I will get my words out of my mouth.
Will you?
Yes, I will. So the sort of theory is that usually girls don't have this skill because when they are little, they don't play with like cars and roads and things. They play with dolls and that kind of shit, which I didn't do either. But I played with stuffed animals, which I guess is the same. And boys are more of like the car and the highway and the thing and the car wheels or whatever stuff. And so the way that they are raised and how, things that the parents might do or behave or teach them even because of the gender stereotype.
Yeah.
That's sort of why this skill isn't developed. And then when I was like, well, now I don't know because you're a girl. So, like, do you feel like it's something that was taught to you on how to think about that?
Maybe it was because I had one of those. Well, my brother had one of those carpets with the
road.
Yeah,
I never
maybe
did.
You should have had one of those.
Maybe I should have. And the thing is that you are so close to your brother in the age way. Yeah, not that you're close to your brother. But how old is he? Like 3 years younger? 2 years? 2 years younger than you.
Well, less than 2, but yeah.
My siblings, my brothers, are like at least 10 years older than me. So there was never playing together or me playing with cars or me playing with anything.
What's that?
Although this thing of like now they were adults and it's like, oh, there's this frustrated toy that I never had when I was a kid. For me, it was always a remote control car.
Like an RC car thingy?
Like one of those that was like old terrain, turned around and
I know. I don't know that you've played with those, but we have a couple. Like my brother has like a drag racing little car thingy and a Hummer type thing.
Yeah, I didn't want like the actual cars. I wanted these like weird bug looking cars that were like, oh, if there's something, it'll jump over it and trip around and stuff like that. And my mom was always like, no, that's a boy's toy.
So, anyway.
It was such a thing when I was little. So I always wanted that. Maybe I would have been better. I would have developed more of this skill. And now I feel like I really need to make an effort if I want to develop my spatial intelligence in that sense. I'm sure I have some sort of smarts when it comes to space. But the car thing, the driving thing, in the map is not.
You know what? I always the other. The other idea that I've had just as a final thought was that even though I don't have that mind palace thing, my dreams very often are very travel-y in a way. Like, it's not like it's something that happens in one space and it just stays there. Like, I can remember so many that are like, oh yeah, I was in school and I was in the library and then I went to this other place and then I moved to this other one. And so it's like I'm always like moving around kinda. And I can always remember like the space where I was, which is something that I don't remember. I don't know if you remember when I told you this, and I think to me it was hilarious how fascinated you were with it, because I said I think I can remember what I was dreaming if I move a certain way.
I do remember, but it sounds familiar.
So
and something I would be fascinated by.
Yes, and so to me it was like, yeah, if I know that my head was like this, I can go back to where I was dreaming when I was in this.
Oh wait, I think that happened to me at some point. I remember there was this one time where I was sleeping like if you're watching me, this is easier but I'm gonna try to explain it. I was laying on my face down.
Yeah.
And I had my arms sort of wrapped around under my head, which it's a very weird thing. I never sleep like that. And I was dreaming something, and then I woke up and I moved, and I went back to the same position, and my dream picked up
exactly
in the same place.
Yes.
And I was like, what is this new ability I have unlocked? And sometimes I try to do it again, and it kind of works, but I can't say that, every time. But I think it's a really cool thing.
I know.
And it kind of reminded me of that door thing where, you forget something.
Yeah.
When you go into another room. And the easiest way to remember it is to go back, because there's this door thing and it's a portal for your mind. And
that's...
See? This is why I love psychology. Because... Not even because of psychotherapy and stuff. I think the thing that really gets me going when it comes to psychology is everything mind related. The mind space and how it works.
I know.
I'm so excited.
I think, okay, we're finishing this cup of tea in a place that is very different and kind of far from where we started. I do like where we got though.
I think it's kind of similar, the whole inner monologue thing happens in your mind.
And I was, I was just, when we were just talking on the way here, about how your nephew lacks common sense, or my grandma cannot think logically anymore, that whole, cognitive process and how the brain works. I think it's so fascinating, and I don't know how many episodes of TED Radio Hour or TED Talks I have listened to just to talk about cognition and psychology and neurology, and it's so insane.
Interesting.
And, yes,
I love it so much. Well, I hope you guys found this as fascinating as we did.
Yes.
I think we're both very curious to hear from you not just what you thought, but what was your thought process while we were saying all of this,
Yes. Share with us.
Were you being outspoken and yelling at us or asking us questions out loud, or was it all in your mind, or, that kind of thing? Do you think you're a person that has no inner monologue? And if so, what's that like? Because we still haven't figured it out.
Yeah, no. We don't have that experience.
Yeah. Okay. Just, I think the no inner monologue, the way I'm picturing it, is meditation. No thoughts.
Yeah, that's also what I'm thinking of.
So if someone is well, of course you don't think that there's an inner monologue. You don't think that there is no inner monologue because it cannot be just silence all the time, the same way that it's we don't have a conversation 100% of the time. So that's why if maybe I'm I don't think that there can be a no inner monologue thing, because the way I picture it is the meditation and the silence and that quiet mind, quieting the monkey mind. Then someone can be that cannot be either, the same way that it's not 100% having 100% of the time having a conversation is the inner monologue. Then the 0% thought,
Mm-hmm.
I hope you know what I mean.
So yeah, share your thoughts with us. Tell us what
your imagery, your thoughts, your words, whichever way, your sensations.
How about
you can tell us about
that? What if you smell stuff instead of seeing it? I don't know. That can be a thing. Might be a little weird, but it can be a thing.
There is a name for that.
Yes, like I
and it's something that happens a lot. Supposedly, apparently, it's a condition that can happen to people. Like that's just the way they experience the thing. But it's something that maybe you could experience if you're having like a psychedelic trip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's a
so
thing.
Let us know about that. My recommendation for today is there's a new Netflix show called Maid with
that's what it is.
Andie MacDowell and her daughter, whose name I don't remember. She on the show, the daughter, kind of reminds me of Kristen Stewart in Twilight with the mumbly acting style. But it's a good story. It's interesting. It's very powerful, I think. It's about this girl who is like our age, and she gets pregnant, and she has to work as a maid because she left her boyfriend who was abusive.
I saw an ad for it today.
Yeah.
On my Facebook, and I was like, oh, that's the thing that she was telling me about.
Yes. And it's good. You should watch it. Highly recommend it.
Yeah, and I guess our other recommendation is everything, like Crash Course and
SciShow-y.
Yeah.
Yes.
By those guys.
So,
who are these guys?
The Vlog brothers, Hank and John Green.
Yeah, I really like them.
Yes.
All right. So that was it for today's cup of tea.
Hashtag
a podcast.
A podcast. Yes. Sorry. Hashtag at a podcast. I guess you can do hashtag a podcast as well, or hashtag a cup of tea. Whatever suits your fancy.
Sure. We'll figure it out. We're all just figuring it out.
And we will be with you
next week. Oh my goodness, like the girl from The Sims.
Little Tipsy?
Yeah, in the video we were watching, she kept saying, like, the whole time, she's like, oh, I'm doing this, and then I got it wrong. We're just figuring it out. Thank you for figuring it out with me on the journey or whatever. It was really cute.
Thank you for figuring it out with us.
Thanks for sharing a cup of tea with us. Send us your comments using the hashtag ACODcast, and remember to subscribe to get fresh episodes every week.